stood on a massive dam high in the Swiss Alps. But I'm not here for the snow, ice or scenery, I'm here for this. One of the world's most challenging and epic construction sites.
Teams here are building an enormous new dam in the most unforgiving of locations. The site sits 2,000 metres above sea level. It's hours away from any major city. And you can only reach this place for a few months each year because the winter looks like this.
Okay, campers, rise and shine. Don't forget your booties, because it's cold out there. It's cold out there every day.
But hold on a minute, why are they building a shiny new dam when there's clearly already a dam standing right behind it? Well, that original structure is nearly a century old, has a crack in it, and is damaged beyond repair. It can't be fixed, it can't be demolished. And if nothing's done about it, well, things wouldn't be good. So here we are, building a dam in front of a dam. But how do you replace something as massive as a dam in the middle of a mountain range? And what would happen if they didn't really bother? I've come to Switzerland to find out. I can't stop smiling because I'm on my way to see an incredible construction project in the most incredible of locations. Everything about this project is epic, including the drive to get here. Look at this, the waterfalls, the death-defying roads, mountains, snow. It's like something out of a Bond movie.
Expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Now, I'm not Sean Connery, and trust me, that ain't an Aston Martin, but I am here on a very special assignment of my own. You see, about 20 miles that way is an historic piece of infrastructure that served the people of this region well for nearly 100 years without any problems at all. That is, until now. Just down there is the Spittelam Dam, one of two man-made walls that were built a long time ago to form this enormous body of water known as Lake Grimsel. Why does any of that matter? Well, it may not be as famous as the dam it looks exactly like in America, but this structure does have its own place in history.
You see, Spittelam is one of the world's first large arch gravity dams. It was built up here in the mountains between 1925 and 1932, and is actually older than the iconic Hoover Dam that we all know and love, which completed 3 years later. At 114 metres, Spittelam was also one of the tallest dams in the world when it finished. The vast structure was built by some 600 construction workers, almost entirely by hand.
But hold on a minute. For those of you sitting at home wondering what on earth an arch gravity dam is, well, let's rewind a bit.
It's where a dam curves upstream and narrows, using its own weight and support bracings to force most of the pressure of the water behind it against the rock walls of the canyon that it sits in. They're ideal for when you're in an area of particularly hard rock, just like this part of the Alps, and they require less material than similar methods.
The completion of this incredible structure meant that a new artificial lake could be created, and that's now used to generate hydroelectric power. Now, this lake is absolutely massive. It has a volume of 94 million cubic metres, making it one of the biggest reservoirs owned and operated by energy company KWO and one of the biggest reservoirs in the whole of Switzerland. But about 30 years after this amazing structure was completed, a pretty shocking discovery was made.
Back in the 60s, when the area was becoming popular with both tourists and filmmakers, some tests were made on the dam which threw up some very worrying results. Investigators found a big old crack on the lakeside of the structure. Well, actually, it was more than a crack. It's what's called a vertical separation. In other words, a massive chunk of material running almost all the way from top to bottom has started to separate from the rest of the dam, the mass concrete. There's a smaller horizontal crack below the crest of the dam as well. Over the years, it's been getting worse, and there are concerns about what might happen to the structure in the event of an earthquake.
Yes, Switzerland does get those. In fact, it averages more than 1,000 a year. Most of them are too small to even notice. In fact, there could be one happening right now, for all I know. But the one that occurred back in 1991, for example, was big enough to cause damage to buildings. Now, at this point, I know what you're thinking. Why go through all that effort of building a great big new dam in front of the original dam? Why not just repair the original dam or fix that crack somehow?
Well, that was the original plan. Break off the material that's already separating and patch it up with some new, better quality concrete so that it's even stronger than before. But it turned out to be too risky. An investigation showed that doing that could lead to a so-called alkali aggregate reaction, which could cause long-term damage to the concrete. On top of all this, quite literally, sediment has started building up behind the dam and is now accumulating around the lower discharge zone. That's not good, because if this area gets completely blocked, it'll become harder to release water from the reservoir if they need to.
Der Worst Case ist vielleicht in 30, 40 Jahren, wenn die Verformungen noch größer geworden sind, der Fall noch größer. Wir haben ein großes Erdbeben hier, dann könnte es sein, dass ein Teil der Mauer in den See fällt mit einer Flutwelle hier, die das Tal beeinträchtigt.
So, what if they just removed the dam? Well, that would mean all of that water having to go somewhere else. And because it's used to generate hydroelectric power, that would leave a gap in the energy grid. That left them with only one option: build an entirely new dam in front of the old dam, and then flood the massive space between them using a tunnel. The original dam that I'm currently standing on is going to be retained. It's a piece of history after all. But the job of carrying the weight of all that water is going to be taken over by the new, younger and fitter dam. Now, when I say it like that, it sounds really simple, but trust me, it's not.
It's going to take a lot of time and money. Luckily, the country's home to a whopping 800,000 millionaires, and that's on a population of only 9 million people. Millionaires who've had to adapt recently. The country's leading financial institution since 1856 collapsed earlier this year. In fact, Bloomberg reports families worth over $500 million, Swiss or otherwise, are changing their strategies, looking to other safe haven investments, with another area of interest being collectibles, with the greatest allocations to art. In fact, thousands of the B1M subscribers are employing a similar strategy with our sponsor, Masterworks' art investing platform. Masterworks has racked up impressive returns for sold works and has acquired over 300 paintings. While a single return is not a guarantee of future returns, their 15th exit, a Cecily Brown piece, was just a few days ago for a 77.3% annualised net return. Masterworks now has $800 million in assets under management, and the B1M subscribers can skip their waitlist at the link in the description.
Now, let's get back to the damn video.
I've been to a lot of construction sites, but never seen anything like this. Cost-wise, the $140 million new dam is pretty small compared to your typical mega project, but its sheer scale and the challenges facing its teams are immense.
Right here is where it's being built, with the old dam towering behind it. Construction has been underway since 2019 and is due to fully wrap up by 2025. Now, obviously, a lot's changed in dam design since the 1930s. The original dam was built with a single arch, which is that huge curve you can clearly see from here. But take a look at a cross-section, and the lake side of the dam rises in a straight line.
Now, its replacement is going to be a double curvature dam, which means it'll curve in a vertical direction too. That means the dam's walls can be made thinner, meaning less materials, while still having the strength needed to hold back all that water. The new dam will be the same height as the old dam, but strong enough to be further extended in future if there were ever plans to grow the reservoir. Building all of that goes like this. It started with clearing space for the new dam. Now, this being solid rock, the team used controlled explosives. And doing that right next to the old dam that's holding back a massive lake full of water without damaging it is just about one of the trickiest construction manoeuvres ever pulled off. From there, the vast dam wall is rising as a series of staggered 15-metre wide towers over the course of 4 summers. It's built like that so that each segment can dry or cure faster and to increase the overall strength of the dam wall.
Das Schwierigste an diesem Projekt ist die Sicherheit der alten Mauer. Wir arbeiten direkt vor einem vollen See und müssen jederzeit sicher sein, dass der alten Mauer in dem See nichts passiert. Also auch bei den Sprengarbeiten zum Beispiel, bei allen Tätigkeiten, die wir machen, muss die Mauer sicher sein.
Overall, some 215,000 cubic meters of concrete will be used. Next, a huge tunnel is being carved through the mountain. That will allow water to be discharged from the reservoir and sent downstream if the levels ever get too high. But before the excavation can be completed, the reservoir must be completely drained by sending all of that water down into the hydropower system. Teams will then clear the sediment on the lake bed and dig the rest of the tunnel before allowing the reservoir to refill naturally. After that, they'll gradually flood the area between the two structures, and the new dam will take over the task of holding back the weight of the lake. The old dam can then enjoy its retirement, in the same place it's always been, and having finally lost its near-century-long battle with the lake. Behind the scenes, or rather inside the scenes, several access tunnels are being formed through the middle of the dam, making for the slightly terrifying location where I find myself now.
That's right, I'm currently stood in the middle of the dam with enormous amounts of concrete around me. Just through there is the old dam, and the other side of that is several million cubic meters of water, which when you're standing in a place like this, isn't such a great thing to think about. There's a massive amount of work going on here and a huge amount of pressure to get it done right and quickly. As you can imagine, one of the biggest tasks is getting that amount of concrete up a mountain. But they found a clever way to do it. Just behind me is the dedicated on-site concrete plant that's been built specifically for this project, and it's using granite from the construction of a nearby power plant in its production of the concrete material. It's just one example of how the construction process on this project is being shaped by its extraordinary location. Driving on top of the dam right now into this site, just coming out of the mist. Look at this.
The Spittelam Dam isn't entirely on its own up here in the mountains. Perched high above it is the Grimsel Hospice, a luxury hotel that's also been here since the 1930s, and you've got to drive over another dam to get to it. Now, Switzerland is an amazing place to come for a relaxing getaway, but when you've got a dam to build, the going can be tough. Teams here are working near continuously, in shifts 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's because for about half the year this place is absolutely covered in snow, and work on the dam has to stop entirely. So they're working doubly hard now while they can.
Ja, wir haben hier eine saisonale Baustelle. Wir können ja nur von Mitte Mai bis Mitte, Ende Oktober arbeiten. Das sind etwa 6 Monate, die wir als Bauzeit zur Verfügung haben. Und während dieser Zeit muss das Bauprogramm umgesetzt werden. Wir müssen da die geplanten Ziele erreichen, weil in einer späteren Phase ist irgendetwas aufzuholen schlichtweg unmöglich auf der Baustelle.
Now I'm here in the summer, believe it or not. I don't really know what it's like in the snow. One person that does is Lucius Garman. Lucius has lived in this region for more than 20 years, and is now a tour guide for people visiting the sites of the area, including the dam and the power plants. Apparently, the best way for him to explain what happens here in winter is to show it from above, and the best way to do that is to jump on one of these. But these gondolas are a bit more than just a tourist attraction, right?
Yeah, it was built for the workers to be moved up here, because in winter you have no chance to get up here on the road. So you have to take several gondolas all the time.
I'm from London. We have, maybe a foot of snow is like the worst snow we get. How much snow are we talking here?
But it's very different. But sometimes we have 3 meters of snow up here.
3 meters of snow.
3 meters of snow. Yes.
Basically, when the cold sets in up here, you need more than just a thicker pair of socks. The site almost disappears under snow. If the project didn't shut down, those working at height would have to endure 200 km/h freezing winds. There's the threat of avalanches. Pouring concrete would become next to impossible. None of it sounds good.
You know, they stop the construction site mid-October till mid-May, and they cannot maintain the construction because of the snow, and it's much too cold for work with concrete.
Enormous piles of snow aside, there's the sheer remoteness of it all. The nearest city, Lucerne, is about 50 miles away behind numerous sharply twisting mountain passes, which can make getting the right materials, equipment and people to the site very difficult, even when the sun's shining. Take the 2 massive red tower cranes behind me, standing 92 metres above this site. They had to be built in sections, brought here by 70 different lorries through the twisting Grimsel Pass, the only route they could take. And because there's not much space on this site, they had to be assembled straight away. There's no room for storage. So timing those deliveries perfectly was an immense challenge. Compared to your average construction projects, it all feels like a lot of hard work. But like all major infrastructure schemes, there's a bigger payoff here. You see, out of sight, deep below the surface of its reservoir, this dam plays a critical role in keeping the lights on across Switzerland. That all happens in a turbine room deep inside the mountain underneath the reservoir. And to get there, I've got to go through here. I'm now driving through a mountain and under a huge reservoir. Look at the sat nav. We are going under a lake. We're down here to see one of the hydroelectric power plants, machines that keep Switzerland running. So we've come down to a pretty noisy location. What is this? Where are we now?
We are now at power plant Grimsel 2, which is located 100 meters below the level of Lake Grimsel. With all our 13 power plants, we maintain 21 turbines and, very important, 5 pumps. We have the possibility to maintain a perfect balance of consuming and producing electricity in Switzerland.
This place is incredible. It was built nearly 50 years ago, and it's a really good example of a pumped storage power plant. But what does that mean?
In very simple terms, it's where two or more lakes or reservoirs at different altitudes are connected, allowing water to flow from one to the other. As the water falls at force downhill, it turns turbines that generate electricity. When there's not a lot of demand for energy, the spare surplus energy is used to pump water back up to the higher lake. Then, when energy is needed, the water is released again. Overall, hydropower is a more consistent energy source that doesn't experience the same peaks and troughs in supply as wind or solar. KWO has a whole series of systems doing this up here in the Swiss Alps, generating energy multiple times from the same water as it flows down from the mountains.
Water is coming from Lake Oberaar, 500 meters above us, and when we are in this power plant running on full power all the four machines, there are 100,000 liters per second running through these tunnels.
100,000 litres a second.
100,000 liters per second.
That is mind-blowing.
Just like the Spittelam Dam above it, Grimsel 2 is another incredible feat of engineering. But amazingly, there are some 200 dams across Switzerland and an incredible 700 hydropower stations like this, many of them tucked out of sight, helping quietly power the country.
What do you love most about living in this part of the world?
It's just the mountains, simply the mountains, these areas, how rough it is here, and I just love it.
Construction projects can sometimes raise questions about whether or not they're really necessary, but that's not the case here. This historic structure simply has to make way for a new and improved version. Yes, this country is incredibly unique. Few places on Earth have the landscape, the climate, or the expertise to build and maintain hundreds of dams and hydro plants. But it's not a type of infrastructure that's unique to Switzerland. And as magnificent structures like this all around the world begin to age, it might be that drastic action has to be taken elsewhere in time too. What these amazing teams are achieving up here in this most breathtaking and unforgiving of environments really speaks to the power of construction and its ability to impact and shape the lives of millions of people. The views are pretty damn epic too.
Es gibt kein Projekt in der Schweiz, das so spannend ist im Moment. Spannende Aufgabe, wunderbare Umgebung, das ist das Schöne am Projekt.